Good afternoon, everyone. Let's give a minute for everyone to settle down. All right, so let's get started. Hi, my name is Sanchita Bhattacharya. I'm the Science Program Lead and Outreach Coordinator for the ImmPort program. On behalf of the ImmPort team, I welcome you all, and I will be moderating the session today. With the new NIH policy on data sharing started this year, it is an exciting time to discuss data sharing, data standards, and data management plans, which are becoming an integral part of conducting research. The title of the webinar is Selecting ImmPort for Open Access Immunological Data Sharing Tools and Resources for Data Management and Sharing Plan Creation. Today, the ImmPort team has put together two presentations. Kate Hypes from ImmPort team will give a brief overview on ImmPort and discuss how ImmPort, being a domain-specific repository for immunology clinical trials data, can support your data sharing needs, followed by a presentation from our guest speaker, Maria Praetzellis from California Digital Library. And Maria is going to present DMPTool and discuss how to write a DMP utilizing this tool. Few housekeeping items before we begin. We encourage the participants to post questions under Q&A window anytime during the presentation. And we will read few questions live after each presentation and also provide answers by text. The webinar will be recorded for future access. With that, I'll turn it over to Kate Hypes, and she's going to present ImmPort overview and data management and sharing plan resources. Kate?
Wonderful. Thank you, Sanchita, for that introduction. Let's see, I'm going to quickly just stop my video to preserve a little bandwidth here, then move through the presentation. Let's see. So today I will be giving just a brief overview of ImmPort, as well as I'm very excited to present some brand new resources on the ImmPort site for data management and sharing plan creation. So, quickly, what is ImmPort? ImmPort is an open immunology-related repository that's been supporting data sharing for the research community for actually over 20 years now. We follow FAIR data principles. Just to give an idea of the current data within ImmPort. So there's over 6 million experimental results across many different diseases and conditions. We have over 600 studies. A study in ImmPort is how we denote a collection of data sets. And there's 150 plus clinical trial studies or data sets within ImmPort, as well as ImmPort has now been referenced in over 1,000 publications. ImmPort is funded by the National Institutes of Health, Allergy and Infectious Disease, and managed directly by the Department of Allergy, Immunology and Transplantation. We're very excited to be a free resource for the community, so data providers may, at no cost, upload and share their data through ImmPort. We are also a recommended repository by Nature +1. We have the core trust seal for trustworthy data repositories, and we're also a member in r3data.org as well. So a little bit about, what is all this data within ImmPort, right? So it is immunology focused data, primarily human. We do have some animal data in ImmPort as well. All these data are de-identified, and we do not accept any identifiable data within ImmPort. Many different assay types and methods are incorporated within ImmPort, but as you can see here in the chart, we have a large amount of flow cytometry data, as well as transcriptomics, cytoph, ELISA, and many data types that our immunology focused community utilizes. If you see a data type, if you don't see a data type on here that you're interested in sharing, please reach out to the service desk and we'll have that information a little bit later in the presentation. We love to hear about new and different data and emerging data types within the community. We're currently now working on actually some fire data and exploring that as far as being able to potentially offer that and ingest some of the fire data within ImmPort. And so as far as ImmPort itself, over here to the right, we kind of refer to ImmPort as an ecosystem. So we've been talking about kind of the shared data area. So that is the blue star here. And so when you land on the ImmPort home screen, this is where you would go to find all of this, open access shared data. You do have to register. It's a free registration process, very quick and simple, essentially just an email, a name, and agreement to the data use agreement. And that gives you immediate access to the data. Here in the orange star there is what's denoted as the upload or private data area. And so ImmPort does provide kind of a private workspace for researchers as you are preparing and uploading your data to the ImmPort platform. Down here in the green star, ImmPort does offer a collection of data analysis tools, as well as tutorials, some resources there related to data analysis. And then lastly, here in the purple area, we'll be talking about this more extensively throughout the presentation. But this is our resource area. And here you'll find the new page related to data management and sharing plan creation. So who are current data providers to ImmPort? For many years, we've been working with a variety of many folks, a large group, primarily NIAID funded and NIH funded consortia, as well as individual researchers, and then groups from external organizations as well. So, we've been working closely with the HIPSI group for many years. Civics, CERNET, March of Dimes, many programs here that we, have been proud to partner with over the past, 20 years of ImmPort. And what that has done is provided a very rich data set. And, what is being done with all this data? So this is a great example, one of many data reuse publications where a team has come in and looked at these data within ImmPort and made some new findings or discoveries that have advanced the field. So this particular example, a team from Stanford actually very early in the COVID pandemic was able to use some existing data within ImmPort related to flu vaccine and profiling the immune response to better understand the emergency use mRNA vaccines that were brand new and at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's been very exciting over the years to see how ImmPort data has been used. And so clearly I think NIH has seen the power, and when we share our data, what can happen, right? So a new policy that just became into effect January 25th for those applying to grants and funding, 2023 policy for data management and sharing. So right here, you can read more in depth about the policy itself. And once again, as stated, ImmPort is a open domain specific NIH supported repository for immunology related data. And one aspect of the new data management and sharing policy requires the creation of a data management and sharing plan. So ImmPort, we love to support our data providers with creation of data management and sharing plans as much as possible. And we have released a new page within the documentation area. So you can access the resources either from the black bar or the homepage there, and then click on the documentation tab. And that will bring up all documentation related to ImmPort. And at the top of the ribbon there, you see the DMS plan and resources. So that said, actually going to go directly to the page here. This is the new data management and sharing plan page. You scroll to the bottom, you'll see a number of these are the primary resources currently on the page. We're working to continue to expand this area. Again, we love to hear from the community. So if there is something that you would like to see on this page that you feel could be helpful, related to data sharing or sharing your data through ImmPort, please drop us a line at the help desk, and we'd love to hear that feedback. The first major resource on this page is a template that we've created. And so if you follow that link, it brings you to, we formatted a template, and this is in the style of the example template provided by NIH. And we've just provided some ImmPort specific comments to help data providers who are potentially, crafting their plan as it relates to sharing data through ImmPort. So some of these items might be helpful comments related to the particular question. And then other things might be related to, we've provided some example text that researchers are welcome to, review and, modify or use for their own means, however seen fit. So we're excited to offer that. I will, say we at the top here, this commentary is specific to ImmPort. So we definitely encourage, everyone to familiarize themselves with the overarching NIH guidance for writing a DMS plan. We've quick linked that here. There's some great resources out there, example plans, really, really good information related to just generally, writing the plan as a whole. And then we've also noted that a number of universities, university libraries have really provided some nice resources related to data management and sharing plan creation. So that is also another great source to check if you have access to your university library to hear if there's any university specific guidance. But then that said, if you're interested in, information that pertains, directly to ImmPort, you can come here to find that out. And then back to the page here. Again, second item here, we quick linked to that NIH guidance. Again, I can't emphasize enough, it's very robust collection of information that provides some, excellent overall guidance for creation of plans. And the third item I wanted to point out here is on, we've created some enhanced documentation around data submission. So, while we're talking plan here, and some might find it helpful if you're not familiar to just better understand the data submission process at ImmPort. It could be helpful as you're crafting your plan, and also just in your planning process when you think about when you get to the point where you're ready to actually submit data. And so that documentation right here kind of has two sections. And so the first of which is just an introduction. So, this is a quick read. You can kind of quickly figure out how data submission and sharing works in ImmPort. And then there's a second section if you'd like to go into a bit more detail and read through step by step the process guidance. We've included a lot of quick links and items, hopefully, that will answer, many of your questions. Again, we're always available at the help desk should you, have any further questions after reviewing this documentation. And the third item I wanted to point out here was related to the study registration wizard documentation. We've also added some enhanced documentation there. And what the study registration wizard does is truly your first step after creating an account, which again is a pretty quick process. Basically email name and agreement to the data use agreement. you will be given a workspace, and then you will want to kind of go ahead and set up your study. And that is providing some initial metadata about your research. And this can actually be done well ahead of time, even before you have the data itself to share. So we recommend, setting that up and going ahead and getting a workspace in the area as soon as possible. And I did want to mention too, ImmPort currently releases or shares data when the researcher is ready, and we do that on a quarterly basis. However, if you have specific timelines that you're trying to adhere to for sharing of your research, then we recommend to you that you definitely reach out to the help desk, and we can work with you to make sure we can meet the goals, your goals and timelines for data sharing. So that is here's just the study registration wizard. There is also in PDF or PowerPoint format, a nice walkthrough of just how to use the wizard there. But it truly is, it's a web-based process. So there's some help items that you can look at kind of along the way to understand what the different fields mean, and some efficiencies built in there that hopefully makes it fairly user-friendly to go ahead and get your study ID and get started in ImmPort. So let's see, the last thing I did want to point out, currently we've also archived the webinars. So this webinar, along with several that we have provided in the past, can be found at this link, and slides and recording, any additional resources that were discussed in the webinar, we like to link there as well. So with that, go back to the full screen mode. These slides, again, we will provide in that webinar area. And this is just going through the resources that we just discussed. And then also, I just wanted to mention, we are, like I said, continually updating that area, and to stay updated on, new features or just new data being shared through ImmPort. Please, we welcome you to subscribe to. We produce a quarterly newsletter where we try to highlight that. Promise not to spam you, and we generally do just release a communication or two about quarterly or so. We also will provide a detailed communication when new data is released, so you can have some insight to see what's being shared by others in the community. We do recommend too that you add ImmPort to your address book, because depending on your organization's spam filtering, just to make sure it doesn't get caught by that spam filter, that's always a good idea to add to the address book at this time of sign up. And then we do post frequently on social media about new data and features in ImmPort. So if you prefer to follow us there, please do. We'd love for you to join. And again, I think we said a few times throughout, but we do love to hear from users and our community. So always please feel free to drop us a line at ImmPort help desk at immPort.org. And we're happy to answer questions or just hear feedback about items or things that would make it easier and helpful related to data sharing. So Sanchita, I think that concludes the presentation. I wanted to go ahead and acknowledge the team at UCSF, Immune Sciences, ICS, Periton, and of course our funding agency and team and group at NIAID and DATE. And last but absolutely not least, the data providers.
Thanks, Kate. It's a great presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to post your questions under Q&A. And meanwhile, maybe we move into the next one. So with that, I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Maria Praetzellis. She's the product manager for California Digital Library Research Data Management Initiatives, including the DMPTool, which is an open source platform for creating data management plans utilized by over 370 partner institutions around the world. Maria works with data librarians, grant administrators, and funders to develop new systems using machine-actionable data management plans to track research projects throughout the life cycle of a project. And today, Maria is going to present DMPTool, a free open source application for data management and sharing plan creation. With that, I would like to welcome Maria.
All right, thank you for the introduction. All righty, here we go. So thanks for having me here today. Just to give a brief background, so I'm with the California Digital Library. We are under the University of California. So we work system-wide with all of the UC campuses, but we also run many services that are, much bigger than just the UC campuses and extend globally. And DMPTool is one of those. But we're also really active in research data management initiatives generally. So we work on the generalist data repository Dryad. We work a lot in data publication and metrics around persistent identifiers, and I'll talk a little bit about that today, and also with digital preservation and data and software skills training. So my group is involved in lots of different initiatives all around supporting fair and open data. So DMPTool is what we're going to focus on now. So this platform is really focused around the creation of optimal structured data management plans. We're a free tool, free to use for any researcher, and also free for any organization to join and become a participating organization where they get some additional administrative features. The tool has been around for quite some time. It's a really, I think, a good example of a successful community-supported tool that has really proved its longevity. It's over 10 years now. It originally started in response to data sharing requirements and requirements for data management plans coming out of the NSF. So that community is kind of went through what the biomedical community is now doing as a result of the NIH changes. So it's really interesting to see that transformation. So the shared code base that we work off of with DMPTool is also utilized by lots of other DMP providers. So in Europe, they have similar requirements for data management plans. We have a shared code base, so they have a similar platform that supports researchers in Europe. Also work extensively with folks in South America, in South Africa, really around the world, all kind of creating similar systems to create optimal data management plans. So as I mentioned, we are a community supported tool. We are a very small team. DMPTool is run by me and one developer. So I need an active community of people in order to make it sustainable. Primarily, I work directly with data librarians. I don't do a whole lot of direct work with researchers. Generally, I'm working with the data librarians who kind of are that front line of information for their research community. And those data librarians are also the ones that keep the tool up to date. And I'm going to show you some results of their hard work. And really, because of this community, the DMPTool has kind of emerged as like the leader when it comes to the creation of good structured data management plans. We were recommended by NSF for creation of data management plans for NSF awards, and the use of machine-actionable data management plans. So when I say structured DMPs, that's what I'm talking about. That is now required for NSF awards as a result of the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022. So I'll talk a little bit about machine-actionable DMPs, and not too much. So if people have questions about that, we can do it in the Q&A. So I know what's front of mind for most folks on this call is the NIH requirements that just came out. So to prepare for that, we assembled a working group of data librarians from across the country. And these folks came together to develop the template that I'm going to show you today. So that template includes all of the questions that come straight from NIH, and then it includes customized guidance, sample language, and fill in the blank text to kind of prompt people into some ideas about how they might approach some of the questions that are asked by NIH in their requirements. So I owe a huge debt of gratitude to these people who really volunteered to help us assemble this great resource. So the ways in which the DMP tool, we talk a lot about NIH, but it's really much bigger than just NIH. It's also NSF, it's also other federal funders. And the ways in which we support those requirements is by making sure that researchers create best practice DMPs that are structured and optimized. Funders, actually campuses can create their own customizations so that their own local requirements are considered. So depending on what, if you're affiliated with the campus, they may or may not have done this within the DMP. And we have a mechanism for registering a DMP ID, which is a persistent identifier. It's a DOI for your data management plan. And I'll show you what that looks like. But really the high level way that DMPTool really helps support federal requirements is by creating a vehicle between data librarians who kind of have the resources and expertise around good data management, and create a bridge between them and the research community so you can have a conversation and really get up-to-date information about resources and best practices that are available for your discipline. I wanted to mention this recent policy change that came out of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, the OSTP. It was big news for those of us in the data library space. May not have trickled down to researchers specifically, but I think I mention it here because although we're really focused on NIH requirements, I think it's important to know that it's not just the NIH. This is much bigger than just NIH. This is at the federal level for all federally funded projects. There are new requirements around making that research available, and new requirements around timelines to make that happen. So this is really part of a larger movement. It's really exciting for those of us that are committed to open data and data sharing to see these changes happening at the federal level. So enough of that. I'm going to jump now into DMPTool specific stuff here. One of the first things that I often get asked from those who are new to data management plans is they want to see some sample plans so that they can get a flavor for what kind of information is contained in a plan. So the DMPTool, there's the URL below, dmptool.org/public_plans. This is where you can get all of the publicly available plans that are a part of the DMP tool. By default, any plan that you make in the tool is private, but we really encourage folks to make their plans public, to share them so that researchers can utilize it and it can become a resource for others. So some ways in which institutions can help you create good DMPs are by customizing the templates that we have in the tool. So again, depending on what institution you are affiliated with, when you log into the tool, you may see some local customizations pertaining to the template that you're working on. They can also provide customized guidance. So this could be where perhaps they have, if it's UCSF, they want to have some repository specific information in here about what repository they're affiliated with. And they could have that as customized guidance within the DMP tool. Again, depending on what institution you come from, and we do have, I think we're at 370 organizations that are participating members. So hopefully, most of you come from one of those. They may have enabled the request feedback feature within the tool. And this allows you to ask a data librarian basically to take a look at your DMP and make comments on it. So this is a nice way to, again, make that bridge between data librarians and researchers so that if you have a question about a section or want somebody to take a look at how you've explained some things or resources you're utilizing or make sure you're in compliance with local policy, you can request feedback. within the tool. And again, this is where you can request or generate a persistent identifier for your data management plan. And this is really important for promoting transparency in research, for demonstrating that you are a good steward of your research data. And it ultimately can facilitate tracking research outputs with your plans. So the idea being that you've said you are going to generate X, Y, and Z data, and then you're able to link it to that plan and demonstrate that you met that requirement. When you do register for a DMP ID, all of that information is then, or that record is going to be associated with your ORCID account, included as a work on your ORCID profile page. And I can answer questions about that when we're done if we want to go farther into details on that. But right now I want to jump into the tool and show you around. So I just went straight, this is the DMP tool. I've already logged in, but again, it's free to use. So you can create an account and get right in. Just to save time, I've already jumped in. So this is a plan. You're just gonna, first you're gonna end up straight in the project details, pretty self-explanatory, title, abstract, your domain, start and end, general information. Collaborators, you can have as many contributors. So this is where you would list the PIs, co-PIs. I think it's great practice to include if there's a data manager. So you just adding their information. Definitely best practice to include ORCID IDs as well. Also, if you want to invite people to collaborate with you on a DMP, you can do that. So if you want to work within the DMP tool with a colleague, you can invite them into the document and both work on it. They don't need to be at your same institution. You could be at different institutions and still have access to the same plan. So the meat of the work happens here in the right plan tab. This is the form that came straight from NIH. So similar to that form that Kate showed earlier, we took the form provided by NIH. It's not a required form, it was just a sample form. We took that from NIH and we put it into the tool here. So it's literally the same language here. So the question here coming straight from NIH, this is NIH guidance on the right here. One thing that, like Kate mentioned, they've done a wonderful job of putting a lot of information out there, which is great. It can be a little overwhelming because it's in multiple places. So what we've tried to do is to sort of consolidate the key policy points that pertain to a question and display it right within the tool, so that when you're answering that question, in this case about describing data, you get the definition of what is data and what is not data. So here below, this is what came from that working group that I was talking about. So they put in some fill in the blank prompt, just some ideas for how you might answer that question, and some sample examples that came from existing DMPs, so that we could just give people a flavor of what might be an answer for those questions. So pretty straightforward there. You just type in your answer. Here in the research outputs section, this is where you can define the specific research outputs that are going to be generated from your research. So could be data sets, samples, that sort of issue. So from here, you can add as many research outputs as needed. Actually, I think I wanted to show you this one that I already made. You're just adding basic information about that data set. You're also selecting an intended repository. So this is where, if say you were going to add it to ImmPort, you could add that repository, and we're using a persistent identifier through a registry of research data repositories. If you're not using that one, if you're using a different one, you can select one from the entire repository search. It's a very large list of repositories. You can select as many as you need. Same for metadata standards. adding some information about your release date, level, license, and such. Again, this is where you can request feedback if it's been enabled at your institution. You can finalize it. So again, it's going to be private by default. If you choose to make it organizationally viewable, you can do that. And if you think you have a really great finalized DMP that you want to share, you can set it to public. This is where you can also register your plan for a DMP ID, which essentially publishes your DMP and gives it a DOI. You can do that by registering your plan. In this case, I'm not able to do it because I didn't answer any of the questions. But if I had, then I would be able to register my plan. And finally, I wanted to show you the download. So once you've created your plan, you're ready to go, you want to submit it to your funder, you can download it here. These are some of the default settings. I suggest that folks just select the question text. That will only display your answers. That way you can make the most of the space. So then you're going to download your plan. Most people want it as a PDF. You can download it as a text or a doc file if you wanted. So that is the tour of the DMP tool. And I just had a few more slides. So just some resources if you have any questions about it. I did have a few questions that I get asked a lot that I thought I would just share before we open it up. When it comes to when I'm speaking with researchers, one question I get asked a lot is just saying, I usually just copy my data management plan from one year to the next with minor tweaks. Probably less relevant for NIH because this is new, this may be new for researchers, but as you go forward, you can do that within the tool and modify it through your dashboard. You're going to copy and you can actually modify an existing DMP. So if you want to iterate on one, you can do it that way. Another one we get asked a lot about is versioning, essentially, saying, you know, this is one of the challenges of creating data management plans is you don't always know exactly which direction research your lab's going to go. Can you easily alter your plan in the DMP tool, and how is it saved if I want to revert back to an old version? So we are working on versioning in the DMP tool right now. The best way to ensure that a plan is versioned and versionable so that you can make changes and iterate it on over time is to generate a persistent identifier. So to register your plan and get that DMP ID. And that system actually has built-in versioning within it. So it's a good way if you think you're going to be going back to your plan and updating it over time. I do recommend that you get that DMP ID. So just some questions if you are interested in kind of having a discussion, some things I'm interested in hearing from researchers, because again, normally I'm speaking with more of the library community, is hearing from researchers on how this is impacting your work. How are you going to be utilizing some of the funds for data management? And if there's additional tools or services that might help you in this pretty big change in research. So that is, I think, my last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing and we can open it up for questions or discussion on any of those things.
Thanks, Maria. It was a great presentation, and thanks for walking us through the DMP tool. I do see a question. Let me read it. Do you have recommendations or guidance for core facilities or labs constructing DMSPs?
Not specifically. I mean, I think the same things would kind of apply. Traditionally, what DMP tool has really focused on is we came out of the university setting. So that's sort of our model. And I will say that is one thing that has really been shifting through these new policies is that DMP tool, we have a lot of new partners. We've got a lot of new medical centers and labs that we didn't traditionally work with that are now part of this community. So at the moment, they are a growing group within DMPTool. And if you come from, you know, if you are an administrator at a lab or a core facility and you're interested in you know, being a participating organization, you could create an account. You know, I can work with you, and then you could put in guidance if you had specific things that you wanted your users to include in their data management plan. We could work on that, but we don't have anything. Specific to point to.
So just to follow up on this question, I was thinking if you have recommendations for repositories like ImmPort. I know you showed a very nice example how researchers can include ImmPort repository while writing the DMSP. Do you have any recommendations for us for repositories?
I mean, Kate and I were kind of talking about this earlier. What I would love to do is have really good metadata that describes repositories and describes, you know, what metadata standards are used in the repository, what your, you know, digital preservation practices are, all of that good information. If that was embedded in the metadata that we get from Re3 data, we could populate it in the DMP tool. And that's come up in many conversations lately, because I think it would be really useful for researchers. Basically marries kind of what we've done and the document that Kate was talking about, right? That had outlined all of those descriptions. So that's new functionality for us. But I think that would be a great addition. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where I see it going.
Yes, of course, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So please feel free to post questions. Meanwhile, there was a question that I would like to bring it back. It got answered by the ImmPort team, but probably the question was for you, Kate, that primarily human data is in ImmPort. Looking at the DMSP, it seems that human-centric. So yet we all have to follow the new DM requirements. So if someone has primarily animal model research with immune endpoints, would ImmPort be the right place?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And
sure.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's a great question, because obviously, you know, a lot of there's additional considerations and, you know, protections around human data that we're very, you know, cognizant and careful of. And if you just look at the plan, there's a lot of references to, you know, do you have human data and what are you going to do and that kind of thing. So I will say ImmPort does have a, you know, good amount of animal data as well. And we have ontologies and things that support that and documenting that. And we do also try, and we're just talking today about efforts to continue to try to streamline like the submission of animal model data, because it doesn't have generally as many of the you know, protections or requirements and things that can come into play with human data. You know, and just also looking at that question, I did think too about you know, Maria, you were showing the area where there's a lot of people have shared their sample data management and sharing plans and made them public. And I'm sure there's probably some nice animal centric examples on there that might be a good resource, I could imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I can't point to, we've got a lot in there, so I can't point to a specific one, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure searching through there. And I think I did see you in the NIH resources. We mentioned that's linked to off of the ImmPort site. There is a sample NIH plan that is with animal data versus human. So that might be helpful too. But.
Great, thank you. If there are any other questions, please feel free to post. Otherwise, I would like to thank the presenters. It was a wonderful presentation, a lot of information. And I would also like to thank the participants. And if you are willing to hear more about DMSPs or anything in particular about ImmPort data submission or data reuse, please feel free to reach out. And we have been organizing these webinars quarterly, depending on the interest from the community. And so in the past, we have done some of the sessions on data reuse, data submissions, and we would like to bring back those kind of presentations in the near future. And if you are interested for any other additional information that you particularly would be interested to know from ImmPort, please don't hesitate to reach out to the help desk. Okay. All right, looks like I'm going to give everyone 15 minutes back in the time. Thank you again. And we will be finishing up a little bit early today. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.